Next speaker is here, and it is Kelley Duran Jones, and she's spoken at StutterFest um, a few times, and she always brings a top-notch presentation and much for us to think about. Kelley, thank you for your time, and always wonderful to see you. We look forward to your presentation today.
Thank you very much. Super excited to be here. Thank you for that warm welcome and thank you for that awesome presentation. That was a lot of great information. I just want to start by introducing myself. My name is Kelley Duran Jones, and I'm an author, speaker, coach. Most importantly, I am a person that have learned to love myself and just as I am. I say all the time that I am perfectly imperfect. Um, I'm a person who stutters. The first remembrance I have of noticing it is when I started school because home was a safe space for me. So I didn't know that I was anything different until I got into the school system. And at that time, I felt safe at home, but I felt very vulnerable at school. I could barely say my name. When I started reading, I couldn't read a paragraph. I couldn't, how to go around the room. I couldn't do any of those things. And so that's why it's very important for me today to talk about my topic is interrupting shame and building a new narrative. For a large part of my life, I was ashamed of myself. I thought, as I said, I thought I was broken, that something was wrong with me. Um, so I have a question for you today. Um, have you ever felt like you had to wear a mask? Not literally like we do because of everything that's going on in the world, but a mask just hiding parts of yourself, just to fit in or just to feel normal or look normal. Um, what if, that very act of hiding yourself, like it was for me, kept me from living the life and the purpose that you have in life, or kept me from, just being able to be myself? It was just recently that I've just let myself open up to be me. And even my closest family members are like, where is the Kelley that we know? Well, that wasn't the real Kelley. That was the Kelley that learned to allow people to speak for her because she was, embarrassed of herself or just, as a kid, I have a big I'm an only child, but I have a big family. My dad actually has 19 siblings and my mom has 8, so it's 9 of them. So we have a huge family, although my mom and dad only had 1 child. So even though at home I could be myself and stutter, but even around my family, I was just quiet and no one noticed. I was just labeled as quiet and shy. But actually I'm not. I'm not at all. I just didn't want people to hear my voice. So the question for you is, and I like to give questions, thought-provoking questions, because I like for you, like this isn't um, just a personal thing for me. I think we've all experienced some of these things, right? So how many moments have we lost? Um, Not because we lack the words or, sometimes, I feel like people think that I lacked intelligence because I couldn't express myself. But how many moments have we lost? Because shame told us to be silent. Drop in the chat. How many moments or experiences have we lost? Because if you've experienced that, just say yes in the chat. I mean, because we weren't able to, express ourselves. A few years ago, up until a few years ago, I thought that I had mastered the art of hiding my stutter. I had clever tricks, my eyes go certain ways. As I said, I'm a speaker and an author now, which is incredible because I never wanted to even speak in a room of 2 people, less known a whole group of people. So, I thought that I had mastered the art of hiding it. I now I know that I became a covert stutterer, that I am a covert stutterer. And I have these clever tricks and strategies to cover up who I am. And most of the time by just being silent, by disappearing when I knew there were opportunities to speak. If I knew they were going to make me say a prayer at church, I would exit to the restroom. If I was in school, I would exit, cause things where I'd have to leave the room. But what I've learned is I was so bound. I wasn't free. to be me. I was holding back the parts of me, um, in so many areas of my life. So one day, I was looking up stuttering and I found the National Stuttering Association. And I was like, what? There's a group of people who talk about this? Like people talk about this out loud. My family never talked about it. My friends never talked about it. It's just, it was what it was, right? And some of my friends didn't even know. Some of my family, after years, didn't even remember. That's how silenced I was. They learned to speak for me. People would ask me my name and my mom would answer, or my cousins would answer. People would ask me a question and other people would answer. It just became habit. So they didn't even realize that I wasn't even speaking in church. Instead of doing the Easter speech, I chose to learn to play the piano so that they would just ask me to play a song instead of do a speech. So I learned to hide myself in so many different areas. And, at this, so I looked up on Facebook, I looked up stuttering and I found the NSA and I was like, what in the world? Like, people are talking about this, so I contacted the local chapter here, and she told me about the conference was just like a month away, and I was able to attend the conference, and I was amazed sitting in a room surrounded by people who stuttered, people talking about stuttering, people being okay with stuttering. I heard so many stories that echoed my own struggles, and that it was just so unexpected to me even being in the room. I saw courage. I saw people stepping forward in their authentic selves despite the challenges they face, just being who they are, even in the workshops and even in the fun spaces, right? The restaurants. It was, I think it was like 700 people in this one place, and it was probably 90% stutterers. And I was amazed by that. And I began understanding that my voice matters, sharing and how using my voice just the way it is could serve others. So I began to understand that it's not just about me as well in this journey. Like there's so many people like me who live in communities where it's not talked about, where it's not even acceptable, but it's laughed at, it's mocked. So you feel shame, you feel broken, you feel all of those things. So but what I learned is just that whole weekend, and my mom and my daughter went with me, that my stutter doesn't lessen my worth. I'm perfectly imperfect. I tell myself all the time, I need to get a t-shirt with that. I'm perfectly imperfect just the way I am. And it's a part of the story that God had for me, not only just for me, but to help somebody else. And so after that, I started looking up other organizations, and this is how I found this organization. And I was amazed at how inviting it was and how people, again, were not only stutterers, but interested in being advocates and just being themselves, right? So I began to write my own story, which was something that was very scary for me. And I authored, I'm an author anyway. I have workbooks, journals, things like that. I'm a coach. So I had things about limiting beliefs, but I never talked about the actual stuttering. And so I wrote my book is called My Voice Matters, Uncovering the Emotional Toll of Stuttering, where I just opened myself up. And writing the book was very hard because I had to tell some truths that I had even blocked out of my own mind. But I was able to break free and live authentically. And this is just in the last 2 years. And so today I just want to leave you with a few steps that helped me um, to get rid of that shame piece. Um, and I have some slides. I just want to share my slides real quick because they have the steps on them, if I may. But, the first important fact for me was that shame loves silence. Shame, loosens up its grip when you speak up, even for yourself. I speak now, in organizations or on stages, but just speaking up for myself in my personal space was a big deal. There's a lot of things that I endured in my life because I didn't know how or didn't want to didn't know how to use my voice, right? Shame isn't about what we feel. Sometimes we think it's the feeling of it all, but it thrives in those quiet spaces, that those boxes that we put ourselves in, where we don't want to tell our story. We don't want to say how we feel. We don't want to say what we're thinking, maybe because of, not only stuttering, but other limitations that we have. So when I speak to people, sometimes it's not stutterers, it's just mostly women who have other limitations that they, physically may have, or that has been spoken over their lives, or that they've created in their own minds from environment, from things they've been taught, from things that they learned. And so I've learned that shame grows in silence. And so every opportunity that I have to present myself, I raise my hand to say something in every situation. I go to meetings with a question, with a valuable question. But what I've learned is every time I speak up, either whether it's personally or in front of an audience, it's building that muscle. It's building that muscle to lessen the shame that I and the fear that I was overcome with for so long in my life. The less we talk about it, the stronger it becomes. So sometimes silence, there's things that you need to say, and because we don't express ourselves, it just grows and it just festers. I can't be the only one that have ever experienced that. But breaking that silence, whether it's to yourself, how you talk to yourself, or to other people, breaking that silence is the first step toward healing. And every time you speak your truth, even to yourself, 'cause that's important too, you take a step towards freedom and healing. So the second thing is your struggle isn't your identity. Whatever the struggle is, for a lot of us now, stuttering is no longer a struggle. So what if there is a struggle? Let's identify what it is, and maybe it's deprived from some other thing in your life. But for me, the first thing that I had to address was my stuttering because I had ignored it for so long. And your worth is so much greater than your struggle. Like sometimes we get caught up in that, and far too often we confuse the challenges we face with our identity. Just because you have a challenge doesn't mean that you have to live behind that. Even with fear, so most of the times I do things scared. Even now, it's still not easy for me to get in front of the camera, but I push myself to do it because I know when I do it, that's a win for me, and that, like I said, that strengthens that muscle. And being unique, I had to learn that being different, it's okay, perfectly imperfect. God made us all different. Like none of us are the same. And whatever gifts and talents we have, a lot of times comes from our pain. I found that a lot of my pain evolved into my purpose when I looked at it head on, right? The third thing is connection brings strength. Um, Strength is found in connection. There's a profound, powerful thing in finding your community. That's why when I found this community and others like it completely changed my life. And being connected and being active made a difference in my life, showing up in spaces where I can also help people. Lastly, before I conclude, I just wanted to share three actionable takeaways for today. Let me say one more thing about community. Being around people who get you is something different. People who understand what you've been through and have been through some of the challenges that you've been through. So, acknowledge your shame. You can't heal from what you don't confront. Build a community, a supportive community of your own, which I've done with a women's group that I host and with my book, just, walking, going to different places, talking about my book and practice self-compassion daily, working on me every single day because healing is important. It starts within you, right? And reminding myself that I'm always a work in progress. There's always growth available, and the progress is worth celebrating. I tell my group all the time, there's no big or small wins. They're just wins. So I thank you for allowing me to share my story with you today. I just want you to remember that your voice matters, it's needed, and it's valuable in your home, in your own personal space, in your workspace, and in your community. And one thing I leave with every time I speak is show up, be intentional, and expect great things.